Good morning and welcome to Emerging Voices Unite. I am Ed McAndrew. If you are here looking for Brad Williams or Peter Dinklage, you're at the wrong place. You should go somewhere else. This is Ed McAndrew, aka Sub 60 Ed. Why did I bring those two gentlemen up? Because, like both of them, I am a little person as well. Hence the nickname Sub 60 Ed, which was given to me by my good friend Chris Rubio. Sub 60 references to that. I'm under 60 inches. I am actually 4'2", and as I get older, I'm shrinking even more, which isn't fun. And that actually that's a good segue into my talk today. But before I do, I just want to give a shout out to my friend Chris Rubio on the Rubio Method. Check him out too. He was the one who, as I said, gave me this wonderful nickname, which I feel fits so well. It's being a little person, dwarf, midget, sub 60, whatever you want to call me. It's the hand I was dealt, which gets into what I'm here talking about today. Playing the hand dealt, and what that means is and it applies in both our personal life and our private life. And if you follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram or some of the other stuff, you can see that that's kind of the way I try to live my life. We're all dealt a certain hand, some of which we can work to improve, and other pieces that we are kind of have to deal with. And I say that in a way that in a positive way, that we have to look at it positively, and it becomes our strength as opposed to our weakness. And this, about 5 years ago, I started on I started kind of a journey of self-acceptance. It's kind of funny. I share this story often. Is that many people see me as a 4 foot something little person, but I never saw myself as that. I always kind of lived outside of who I was, and it wasn't really bringing me the peace that I needed. And when you begin to learn to play the hand you're dealt, it wasn't that I didn't accept it; it was that I just didn't fully accept it. And playing the hand dealt, can come into it. It basically says, I'm going to be the best I can be with what I got, and that means accepting some things. For example, it's interesting that I've got this private forum. Emerging Voices Unite. Nikki and all of them have given me this forum by myself. I know. no, you know, no. It hopefully it turns out to be a good thing, and people kind of join and watch. But I had a situation where playing the hand dealt came into effect just yesterday. I was at Hershey Park, and as I've gotten older, some stenosis has gotten in, and I'm not as mobile as I used to be. And that's kind of bothersome, but I got to play the hand dealt. So I was going on this ride, and I had to use the accessible ride. It's the ride that you go and you see how chocolate's made. I had to sit in a wheelchair. It was fine. The ride was fine. I then went and as I was coming off, the girl who was pushing me off the ride and back to the entrance said, "No, how'd it go? How was the experience?" I said, "You know what? You treated me great. The experience was awesome. It was very nice. You were kind." And I said, the experience internally was what I struggled with, being in a wheelchair, being the first time. But see, I have a choice there. I can either let that bother me or accept that as my new normal. And that's what we all have to do. And this kind of continues into my story, where I went over to the bakery that was in Chocolate World. And as I go over there, because I have to see the bakery, it's chocolate's not my downfall. Baked goods are my downfall, such as cookies, cakes, etc. So I always have to follow the bakery. So I went over to the bakery, and there was a guy sitting behind the counter, and my first thing is, I did a dumb joke. I said, "All right, I take one of everything on a baking sheet." Didn't realize that he was in a wheelchair until I kind of moved closer, and I saw that he was in a wheelchair. He got my cookies, and I said, "Hey, do you mind if I ask you a question?" And he said, "No." I said, I said, I mind if you have ask you a question about the wheelchair? And he said, no. I said, how long you been in a wheelchair? And I was going somewhere with this, and he said, no, he'd been in there since he's 15. He's 48 now. He suffered a bad accident. And I said to him, and I said, it's great that you're, there doing your thing. He goes, yeah, I have a choice. I didn't want to sit home depressed like a lot of people are. I wanted to get out and live life. And he has a dream of, opening up some kind of stand and going and making his own business. I said, that's great. And I shared with him, I said, I just had to take the ride in a wheelchair. It kind of was a little, it wasn't, it kind of bothered me a bit, but I did it anyway. And I moved past it. And that's what playing the hand dealt is all about. Playing the hand dealt is staying in a positive frame of mind to keep ourselves in a state of peace. And see, when you play the hand dealt like that, you end up finding your peace. And that's what I did. And that's what I realized what I was missing in my life. I was searching for happiness, and when I really needed to be searching for peace. Once I changed that and I accepted it, peace came. I started to feel more peaceful. Now, does this mean that we are always sitting there saying, oh, this is great, I'm a little person. Oh, this is great, I'm in a wheelchair. Or this is great, I have some other issue. No. But it means that you're not letting it ruin your life. You're not letting it control your life. You're accepting, and that's the key word, accepting where you're at, what you're doing. It's just like, and this goes as in life, your personal life and your business life. I share with my daughter. My daughter wants to have all this money, wants to be able to spend, which is great. And I tell her, and I tell, thank you, Nikki, I appreciate it. I tell my daughter, she's 20 something. She's a kid. And she's just a kid. She's starting out. She's worked 2 jobs, living on her own. I got to, God bless my daughter. My son too. They're both, one's a spender, one's a saver. They're both, 20 somethings, fully employed. Proud of them. Proud of that here. But she wants, be able to do X, Y, Z. But she's got to pay for her rent. She's got to pay for food. She's got to pay for blah blah blah. And I tell her, I'm like, you know what? It's okay to be frustrated, but don't let it ruin who you are and what you're doing, because you're not going to be there forever. My daughter will not be stuck, or I shouldn't say stuck, will not be in a entry-level position. I will say this, just to brag a little bit, she just got a job part-time working with horses. She loves horses. It's like her dream job. She's getting up at dark 30 to do it. I'm proud of my son's getting up at dark 30 to do his job too. Both doing great things. They're playing their hand dealt, to do what they need to do. They have to get up at dark 30. And when I'm saying dark 30, I mean, my daughter has to be in DC, downtown at 5:30 a.m. to work with the horses. She's got an hour commute. So do the math. She's about an hour away. So she's getting up pretty early to do it. So that's what I'm saying. It's playing the hand dealt. That's her hand being dealt right now. And she's doing it, and she's loving it. But she's got to go to bed at like 8 o'clock to do this. So we make the adjustments. And we have like the guy I met at the guy in the wheelchair at the bakery. He and I learned something about each other that day. That's the other thing about playing the hand out. It's about communication. That's the other thing. I had another situation earlier. We were like a farm thing, Halloween, fall festival type thing. And I'm walking around, and I walk around with, I stick out. It's the odds on running into a little person when you're out in public is like 0.001%. So there's not many of us. And I say that because when it comes to young children, they have a tough time. They have a tough time comprehending. So my hand dealt is that kids are going to come up to me and say something. They may say something in passing. They may say something to their family. And what we can do as people is we have communication and learning. A kid came up to his mom. I was within earshot. He said, "Hey, Mom, look at him." Probably 5 or 6. The mom had a great answer to him. Why don't you go up and say hi and ask him? Because he asked her why I was so small. And it was within earshot. I mean, I was close enough to acknowledge the mom. And as soon as that happens, the little boy gets shy and goes running off and says, "No, it's not that big of a deal," which is fine, right? But I looked at the mom. I said, "You know what? That is the best way I've seen people handle it. Asking your child or telling your child to go up and talk to me." And the reason why is that's how we learn. That's how the young boy learns or the young girl learns that even those people who are different are the same. We're all the same, and we all have differences. No two people are alike. Even identical twins have some slight things off. So, the boy ran off, and I said, if we cross paths again, I said to the mom, I said, if we cross paths again, I'll say hi to him. But we have to be willing and able to have that open communication. Like I said, it goes in business too, Sometimes you got to play the hand dealt in business. You're not, maybe you're not where you want to be. For example, how did I get on here? I know Nikki. Nikki sent me some kind of message. I forget, some kind of advertisement of a previous EVU episode. And I said point blank, Nikki, when am I going to be on? And next thing you know, here I am talking to people. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Play your hand dealt, Nikki could have said, no, you're not exactly what we're looking for. Okay. But at the same time, she didn't. And remember, another kind of thing I like to tell people, I like to tell my kids, and is that I don't know. What the question, the question never asked is always no. It's always no because, yes, exactly. The definition of when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade rather than throwing in the towel. Exactly, Jose. That is 100%. You can, and that's exactly what for the longest time, I'll sit here in a minute. I thought my issues were something special that I didn't have, that nobody could understand. And, everybody deals. And then as I kind of went through my process over the past 5 years of self-acceptance, finding peace, because I believe peace leads to positivity, leads to happiness. Search for peace. Don't search for happiness. Happiness is a feeling that can come and go. Try to find your peace. And again, I'm not going to say I'm perfect. This is, playing the hand dealt doesn't mean you're smiling and jumping up and down every day because I'm 4'2" and I can't reach something. No, it has its struggles, and you're allowed to be, you're allowed to be, yes, exactly. The hand you're dealt isn't your limitation, it's your invitation. Exactly. But see, that's a great point. And that's a great point because in today's society, we're too afraid. That is an invitation to learn. And by learning, we grow. By asking questions, we learn. By learning, we grow. And we grow closer together. But the problem is that people are afraid to ask. And I always challenge people. I'm like, people that are like, whether you're in a wheelchair, when you're different. And what I mean by different, we're all different, but when you're obviously different. A 5-year-old sees me, I look older than his dad. My beard is, you might not be able to see it in the lighting, but my beard is almost more salt than it is pepper nowadays. I look older than their dad, but they can look me straight in the eye. Process that for a second and put yourself in the shoes of a 5-year-old or 6-year-old. That can be difficult. So when you ask questions, you can say, oh, that's somebody different. He's just like you or me, but he's just short. You don't see it as much with somebody who's extremely tall because you watch basketball and you kind of see that more often. But again, playing the hand dealt. It's about accepting who you are, where you are, and working to be your best. I've come up with if you follow me on LinkedIn, I've come up with, I call, my CAP philosophy, or the CAP methodology on doing it. I tell you, put on the cap twice. Put on the cap tight, and it's C. A squared, P squared. And you're like, what the heck is that, Ed? Well, it's consistency, agility, acceptance, patience, and positivity. And this can be in every aspect of your life. Exactly. Playing the hand out is accepting who you are. Exactly. That's uh, consistency. For success in life, you have to be consistent with your hand dealt. You have to accept the hand dealt, and consistency first comes out of your existence, which means, if you're in sales, being consistent at being that value add for your customer. You know, just taking it to the business side for a second, being consistent, talking to your customers, treating them as people. Nobody wants to be sold to nowadays. They want a relationship. They want to they want to see you as a value add. They don't want to see whether you're a consultant, salesperson, looking for business relationships or what have you. Be kind. Be kind. Don't look at them as a dollar. As soon as people get that sense, they walk away. They don't want to be sold to. Here, I'll share a story. I had a client. I was a customer success manager about a year or so ago. I had a client, and this is how you build relationship. He had a good relationship with him before. He told me his son and daughter-in-law had their first grandson, his first grandchild. He was ecstatic about it, talking it up. When he told me about it, every time we would connect, we'd talk once a month. I'd always ask about the grandson. He started sharing pictures. We're still friends to this day. You build a genuine relationship with the hand you're dealt to better your relationships in life. You have to be authentic in doing that. If there's no authenticity, people will see right through you. Okay, the first A, agility. Life comes at you fast. It's not a straight shot. It's kind of, if you've ever been to Hawaii, or if you're familiar with the road to Hana, that's life. It's not like Route 66, a straight shot through. If you don't know what the road to Hana is, Google it, check it out. It is a treacherous road. Life can be treacherous. You must be agile. Okay? You must be agile, and by that I mean, when the little boy comes up to me and asks me why I'm so short, I have to be ready for an answer. I have to be, if I'm, sometimes, kids don't always have manners. I might be in the middle of eating. I might be in the middle of talking to somebody. You're agile, If, the customer decides to go a different route with what you're selling them, you're agile. You bring in different things. Next thing is acceptance. You have to accept who you are. Nothing can change. If you can't accept who you are, nobody can accept who you are. You have to accept yourself first. I learned that 5 years ago. It's funny. Prior to 5 years ago, when I was growing up, people would say, you're so well adjusted, Ed. You're so this. You're so, you don't let anything bother you. You don't. And I didn't. I didn't. I come, I come from a family. I'm the only one who got the short straw in my family. My dad was 6'4". I've got two brothers that are in excess of 6 feet, and I've got roughly 7 male cousins who are 6 feet or greater, plus uncles that are 6 feet. So, I was not, I was not I was not blessed with basketball height. Nonetheless, you have to accept that. But as I told the guy yesterday, I'm a short guy in a big world. You have to deal with it. It's just the way it is. And everything is not going to be adaptable, and that's okay. I'm also a businessman too. I understand that things can't always be adaptable from a business perspective. So that's where I kind of juggle my two things. So acceptance is very important of yourself. If you can't accept yourself, you need to take the first step. The first P is patience. Success doesn't come overnight. Acceptance doesn't come overnight. Peace doesn't come over. Nothing comes overnight. I heard a great quote the other day. Well, no, actually, in some of the motivational stuff I listened to, and it was, people are looking for quick hits, quick wins. It's, don't look at your whatever you give up as a sacrifice. Look at it as a long-term investment. You're investing in yourself. The example he gives, you're not going out to the happy hours anymore. You're not going out to eat at a restaurant because you want to get in shape. It's not a sacrifice, it's an investment. Flip the switch to say sacrifice to investment. It changes the whole outlook on what you're thinking about, what you're doing. So that's that. And then the last thing, no matter what you go through, no matter what, stay positive. As if you follow me, and those who follow me on LinkedIn will know I talk about smiling, laughing, and smiling and laughing all the time, because smiling, it takes less muscles, as many of us know. Plus, it also releases dopamine into our system, and dopamine allows us to be positive and stay positive in the in the in the moment. And remember, where you are at that moment is where you are is not where you're going to be tomorrow. Each day, it's the old precious present thing. Yesterday, as I heard a monk. I listened to some Shaolin monks and some other philosophers, just to kind of, you know, just kind of pay attention to different things, and hear different philosophies, different talks. Kind of keep an open mind on what other people believe. And one of the things he was saying was, yesterday is dead. Tomorrow is not born yet. Today is our life. And if you really think about it, it is. We plan out for vacations. We plan out for this. We plan out for that, which is great. You have to. But if you really think about it, it's not guaranteed. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. And I know that's a real pessimistic way of looking at it. No, it's to me, it's kind of realistic. But we're making plans for the future. I'm not sitting still, but it's just kind of interesting when you think about it, that when you're able to stay present, when you're mindful of what you're going through. Like, I'm being mindful that I'm talking to, I don't know, hopefully a handful of people. Hopefully I didn't run everybody away from EVU. This show has just died before it takes off. Opportunities to encourage it. Yeah, telling our story. That's exactly right, Nikki. The thing is that we can't be afraid to tell our story. I used to be afraid to tell my story. I thought I called too much attention to myself, just being myself. And I always thought that, it was, I didn't want to share my story. I didn't want to, I didn't have a story to tell. But then I realized, like I said, about 5 years ago, when I started kind of posting and doing stuff like this, that I did have a story to tell. And maybe it can help somebody, and maybe, and I came to learn, people would reach out to me here and there, just saying, hey, I'm here listening. I don't comment. I don't like, I hear you. And it's, something, it hits home. Thank you. And you know what? That's great. It's cool to get likes and impressions and stuff like that. And I love the comments. I've built, if you're on LinkedIn, you'll see I have something, we call it the fam. It's kind of a take on Dom Toretto's from any of the Fast and Furious. He calls it his family. So I started calling it the fam. We accept all, and all are accepted. You just have to be nice. And you can come in and join the conversation. What we've built here is a nice little community. Anybody can join. And it's kind of fun as you watch. People are sharing more. People are learning more. People are not commenting only on my post. They're commenting on each other, and we're building a community. And see, playing the hand dealt. I share stuff in my post about me. I try to frequently, as I told somebody, my LinkedIn is my journaling. I don't journal at home. I don't write stuff down. This is my journaling. This is when I talk about doing better, being better, trying to find your peace. That's my talk to me as well. I by no means am perfect at this. I'm still trying to figure it out every day. Juggling. I've got, as I mentioned earlier, I got 2 adult kids, married, working, and all of that. So it's a full-time job. But you find your peace where you can. And that's what makes life exciting. I have a lot of friends that are recently married. They've got young kids. I'm now the oldest. I'm now in that older echelon, which is kind of weird because I remember being in the youngest echelon just yesterday. So, and I share with them, and if any of you are listening that have young kids, they grow up fast. I can't even tell you how fast. It's just fast. And there are going to be good days and bad days. Enjoy them all. They're all experiences. They're all stories that someday you can look back and laugh on, because that's what it's about. It's about finding the fun in life. And today, here in the States, we've got a lot of crap going on. A lot of people, different opinions and stuff like that. I was sitting, it's funny, I was sitting at people watching at the parks over the weekend, and they're just going about their business, doing their stuff, loving life, riding rides, eating chocolate. That's what we need to do. It's good to be focused on that, but we can't get all tied up in angst about it. So I see, I'm watching the clock. I'm counting at 27 minutes. I could probably talk for 27 hours because I am a talker of sorts. But I'll start putting a little bow on this so we can wrap it up in within between 30 and 45 minutes. So playing the hand dealt, using the CAP methodology, using the CAP philosophy, stay consistent in what you do. Just be consistent. If you're going to work, and that's true with, if you work workouts, you're not going to run a mile if you can't walk a mile first. You got to start somewhere. So just start. Or, you want to become, an accountant. Go to school as a second career, maybe. I don't know anybody who would, but if you do, I'm an accountant. I can say that. So I've got an accounting background, so I can make the accounting joke. You can, be, go back to school. Don't be. I mean, it's okay to be kind of, anxious about something, but don't let it stop you from going after something. Because remember, you don't want to go through life saying "what if." So being consistent, going and doing, and checking in and going to. Life is treacherous. Yeah. Oh, you can absolutely use that one, Nikki. That's it. You have to be agile. Life is all about agility, and that's good that just came up because stay agile. You never know what's around the next corner. It could be good. It could be bad. Hopefully, it's good. Hopefully, most of it is good. But the agility is very important. Acceptance. You got to be accepting yourself. If you can't accept yourself, nobody else will. You've got to accept yourself first. I've found that. I know it's kind of it's funny because if you don't accept yourself and others are, it creates a conflict, and that's what I had to deal with internally in myself. I was always accepted. I didn't accept myself, and it puts you in a real weird spot, and it kind of messes. I dealt with depression. I got through the acceptance and found my peace going to therapy, and that's the other thing. Going to therapy and asking for help is okay. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. If you need help, get it. Unfortunately, I've been affected by suicide, those who have succeeded and those who have not, way too many times to tell you. That could be a whole nother session. But you know, the life is much better with you out there. And if I'll tell you this now, if you need somebody to talk to who has 2 ears, who's a good listener, you find me and I will help you get help. The second thing, acceptance. That's the thing. Remember, accepting who you are, where you are currently, and knowing that you're not going to be there forever and to keep moving forward. Second thing is patience. That goes back to, you're not going to be where you are forever. Patience is important. I didn't have patience. I wanted to be somewhere real quick. Patience. It's hard. It's very hard. But remember, it's not a sacrifice. It's an investment in who you are. Think about that, okay? Think about that next time you sit there and you're thinking about, oh my God, this is such a sacrifice. I got to eat more vegetables than ice cream. But I want to fit into the wedding suit or my swimsuit for the summer, or oh man, I got to hit the gym at 0400, 0500. Oh, it's such a sacrifice to go to bed early. Well, it's a choice. It's really a choice. We belabor these. It's a choice. You don't have to. Nobody's threatening you to do. It's a choice. And then positivity. You gotta stay positive. I know it's not always easy. I'm not always positive. I try. I try to be as positive as I can out here in the world, because I want to make the world a brighter place. That's why I try to hit the gym as much as possible. The gym is my happy, positive places where I recharge. That and the beach are my two happy places. If you know me, if you follow me, I say that often. A lot of people I follow and stuff are gym people. So I've been going to the gym and working out since I've been 12, 40 plus years. So it's kind of been rooted in who I am. Still, I will go until I cannot walk. Then I will go via wheelchair. It'll maybe the place they bury me. Anyway, so remember that. So when things are getting hard, dealing with the hand that you've been dealt, make sure you pull your cap on tight, and just remember those 5 things, and hopefully it makes sense, and it can it bring you some peace. And again, peace come and accept it. I mean, if I could have come up with a good word that fit, I would have probably put acceptance, but acceptance has to happen. And that's that if without acceptance, the rest of it won't really come to be. As I wrap up here, I know I just want to say, thank you to Nikki and the whole EVU team for giving me this opportunity to talk to you all. I appreciate it. I'm just a guy, here down in Northern Virginia, trying to make my circle a little bit better, that hopefully will make everybody another circle that bit much better. And just understand, as we make our circle better, the people in our circle have circles, and the people in their circles have circles, and it explodes and it goes out exponentially to everything else. So that's what really we want to try to do. And how do we do that? We do that by smiling, staying positive, joking, and not taking life too seriously, and accepting ourselves and accepting others for who they are. So with that, I'm going to say a thank you for joining me here. I even come under by about 10 minutes. And thank you. Or if there's any questions out there you have for me, because we do have 11-ish or so minutes, happy to take questions or comments. Hello, LinkedIn user from the Netherlands. Funny. That's interesting that I brought that up. I used to work for a company that was based out of the Netherlands and worked with a lot of Dutch people back in my younger days. Very nice people, the Dutch. Actually, Europeans in general I have met are nice people. So yeah, so yeah, so sorry about that. I accidentally hit the wrong thing. Hello. Yeah, open. Everybody still there? Sorry. We are. Okay, we're still counting live. All right. Sorry about that, people. You know, that's the fun of live shows is that you hit something wrong. Next thing you know, it uh goes you go haywire. So back to what I was saying. If there's any questions, comments, something you want to share about playing the hand you're dealt, something that might have resonated with you. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on LinkedIn. Always fun to have more people join the fam. Ed McAndrew. I'm also on in Facebook, same name. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok, sub60ed. Again, I go by that's a friendly nickname. I always, as I told Chris Rubio, I said I appreciate that more than that nickname more than anything else because it's truthful. I am sub 60. I am less than 60 inches, sub 60 ed. So that's that's what we got, and I just hope everybody. Yeah, I just hope everybody has a great rest of your day, rest of your week. Happy Taco Tuesday to everybody. You know, treat yourself if you had a bad Monday. Treat yourself to and you're having a strong Tuesday. Go ahead and treat yourself to tacos. Even if you had a good Monday, treat yourself to some tacos. You know, so it's always fun Taco Tuesday. You know, and so and if you have, and again, I'm my as I tell people, my DMs are always open. I always like chatting with new people. I am not a shy person, as I guess to be on these things you'd have to not be shy, maybe. I'm not a shy person, so feel free to reach out, say hi. You know, want to talk about things. I'm you know I'm not a coach or anything like that. Maybe someday, but I am more. I like to help people. I like to talk to people. You know, I got one guy reached out to me, said, Ed, I follow you. I said, I'd like you to kind of just keep me on task of what I'm doing with regards to working out and stuff. So I am. I'm his checkable. We've become good friends. It's that simple. I said, if you need somebody like that, I can be that person. If you're struggling, I can be that person. If you want to talk to, if you need somebody to talk to, if you don't have anybody, I can help. Yeah. So, we all need somebody. And that's the other thing. Don't be afraid to get help. Like I said, if you followed me before, I was the producer and co-host of a show called Decades, and we had somebody on there, take his own life without warning, and world's, world is too, uh, world is a better place with all of us in it. Let the man upstairs decide when it's your time, when your job is done. Don't let a irrational or don't let a tough moment create a irreversible decision. That's not what we want to happen or do, because life is better with all of us in it, and that starts with accepting who we are and where we are, and accepting others. Accepting others for being different. Well, whether we don't have to agree with people, just accepting that's who they are, that's what they want to be, and that's all there is to it. And then no, and life becomes a much happier place. So, again, thank you to Nikki and all of the EVU Emerging Voices Unite people for allowing me this this forum to talk with you all. I had a great time, and I can say, Amelia, you ready? When you're ready to wrap it up, I'm ready to put a bow on it and say thank you very much, and hopefully I'll talk to you again soon.